Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Play, Pause, Rewind, our 83rd episode. It's been a couple weeks since we talked about Dune 2, which was a great time. In that time, Niles, how have you been?
Been good. Been doing all kinds of things. you know, yeah, it's been a good time. My dad had an art show, which was always just fun to go see and just check out local art. So yes, support local art. It's great. It's definitely important stuff to do. And it's we had some friends also move back to Denver, so got to help them out move, and that was a good time. But yeah, how about you, Dylan? How have you been?
Good, yeah, we did a lot of the same things. Also went to that that art show and helped our friends move back in. We got to meet their little baby, which was so cute.
Yeah, we're at that precious stage of life right now where some of our friends are starting to have children, and we're not quite ready for it yet. But it's happening, and sooner or later it's just kind of like the clock ticking down a little bit of like, here's your reminder.
Yeah.
Your friends are having kids.
I love the situation though, where like you get to go play with the baby and see the baby, but you don't have to do anything to take care of it. It like it poops, you call over the parents and they do it. They take care of the baby.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah.
That's the best kind of situation.
Yeah, but went out with some other out of town friends after doing all that, so that was fun as well. Drank way too much beer, but you know, it happens. We make mistakes. We live and learn. But we are once again talking about a movie, and we'll do a couple minutes non-spoilers, and then we will hop into spoilers. But this week we are talking about Love Lies Bleeding, directed by Rose Glass, written by Glass and Weronika Tofolska, and starring Kristen Stewart, Katie O'Brien, Jenna Malone, Dave Franco, Anna Barry Shikov, and Ed Harris. Love Lies Bleeding is a romantic thriller set in 1989, following a small-town gym manager, Lou, and bodybuilding enthusiast Jackie as they fall in love and become entangled in a web of violence and revenge. Niles, what are your initial non-spoilery thoughts on Love Lies Bleeding?
I'm pretty pleased with Love Lies Bleeding overall. I thought it had a lot of really strong characters. This is a very character-driven story, and Kristen Stewart and Katie O'Brien, they're the leads here, playing Lou and Jackie respectively, and I think we're just phenomenal. Like Kristen Stewart, like we've slept on her as an actress for so long. I think she's really strong.
Yeah.
I think she got a bad start with, Twilight, of course. Everyone kind of really did not like her for a little bit because of that. But, that was the time, and it was a stupid reaction by everyone because I think she's really good. And it was ultimately the narrative that...
Right, yeah. I don't think Twilight did any favors for anybody involved because, like, there are plenty of very talented people in those movies. But, it's a weird situation. Maybe we'll do a retrospective on the fucking Twilight movies sometimes. I've never seen them, but they don't look great. But not...
Yeah, I've never seen them either.
Yeah.
But, yeah, my partner's been... like, hey, maybe one day we should watch those. I'm like, yeah, one day when when my leg is broken and I got nothing better to do.
She's gonna break your legs, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be don't even remember which Stephen King book that is, but yeah, it'll be that whole thing where I'm just trapped at home. Anyways, Love Lies Bleeding. I thought this was, just fantastic performances from the entire cast. We had some very strong leads, like I just said. And, as a, cisgendered male, I honestly don't explore LGBTQ media too often. I don't watch a lot of lesbian thrillers about, these kinds of couples. So it is refreshing to go see this kind of film, broaden horizons again, explore new media. And, I thought this film, it's very powerful. It's fast. It's digestible. I saw some critiques online that just kind of compared it to Thelma and Louise. Just, this is our Thelma and Louise of our generation.
Okay.
Which I haven't also seen.
Thelma and Louise is great. You should watch that.
Yeah, I've heard it's a really good film, so I definitely want to watch it. It just hasn't been on top of my list. So yeah, it's up there now for sure because of this movie, I think. But yeah, I really liked the aesthetics of this film too. It just feels so gritty and sweaty and gross all the time. Like, I'm not exactly sure where they are in
I
America,
think
but
it said filmed in New Mexico in the credits, so I'm
yeah,
betting it's just in New Mexico somewhere. The
yeah. But it's
landscape
just a small
fits. Yeah.
town somewhere. Yeah, small town somewhere that's just like you want to get out, but you can't.
Hmm.
It's just kind of a place along the way to your destination, and that's how a lot of people treat it. So I thought the atmosphere really fit it well, and yeah, just the characters were really strong. So I'm happy with this film. I'm very positive on it. What about you, Dylan? What are your thoughts on Love Lies Bleeding?
Yeah, I had a good time with this as well. I think the elements of the beginning of it I felt were a little clunky or just kind of rushed through, but once you get into the rhythm of the movie, I was invested all the way through, and I liked the characters and the main relationships and felt a lot of tension. I think there's great tone and atmosphere in here. It feels very like not a descriptor for movies usually, but it just like was grungy, you know? Like 90s grunge rock was like it was like the visual equivalent of that for me for some reason. Um
I see that.
but
Yeah.
it yeah, and very tense and fast paced, especially once things get going. It doesn't really slow down. It was yeah, it's a fun time. It's pretty violent and there's a decent amount of sex stuff in there, so just be forewarned if you're squeamish about either of those things, but beyond that, honestly, like I don't really have anything bad to say about it. I had a good time, and yeah, two charismatic leads carried it on their backs, and yeah, I was just engaged the whole way through. So don't really want to say
Yeah.
too much without spoiling things. So you want to transition over into the spoiler world?
Sure, why
All
not?
right.
So yeah, as the plot continues, and as the main relationship between Lou and Jackie builds, there's a lot of different characters that play here, and one of them is JJ, the abusive husband of Beth,
Mm-hmm.
and he eventually puts, and Beth is the sister of
Yeah, Lou's
Lou,
sister. Yeah.
as well. But JJ eventually puts Beth into the hospital because of physical abuse. It's just a terrible, terrible thing. And seeing the pain that Louise is grappling with and her, kind of the inability to get anything done. The cops aren't going to change anything. Lou Senior's not really going to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like he might give JJ a slap on the wrist, but things really aren't going to change and improve for Beth. So Jackie, out of kind of her love and this understanding of the pain, she takes things into her own hands and goes and kills JJ very, very, very brutally.
Oh my god, it's so violent. But speaking of JJ's abuse, it's like the film does a good job of like establishing just visually this escalation of his abuse, right? Like when Lou first goes over to their house, you can see some like slight like bruises that have started to heal on Beth, I would say, and then at the dinner scene at the restaurant, you see the black eye, and so much is just communicated just between the body language of the actors and that black eye before we're even overtly told anything about this abuse, and then we get context into this whole relationship, and then yeah, it gets really, really bad. So,
Yeah, the cycle of violence continues for the rest of the movie. But it's also a cycle of love to a certain extent, but also a cycle of obsession.
yeah,
Too. There's a lot of obsession in this movie, which also kind of overlaps with the love. But the heart and soul of this movie is this relationship between Jackie and Lou. Our two leads here, and we definitely do need to talk about them.
Yeah.
If we're going to talk about this movie.
Yeah.
What did you think about their relationship?
So I think the relationship is great, but the very beginning of it I thought was a little abrupt. Like in their very first interaction, it's like, oh, this is a couple now. They're already acting like that, and they bond so immediately that it was a little distracting for me, and I didn't totally love that first scene of them in the gym getting to know each other a little bit. I don't know what it was. The rhythm of the editing and their performances just felt a little off there, but every moment after that I was fully bought in. So maybe it was just the movie. It's not a long movie, so maybe they're just like, all right, this is our relationship. This is them. We're going. And it was just a little abrupt for me at the beginning, but I did not feel that way for the rest of the film. So
Yeah. No, I kind of agree because I think that their relationship, it does start off of physical attraction mainly. were kind of eye fucking each other from across the gym for a while, and then they just hung out outside, and that asshole came up, and they got in kind of an altercation, and then it just kind of one thing led to another. So yeah, I think it was a bit of a clunky start. I'll give you that, for sure. I do think that Jackie and Lou, they do grow to love each other in this movie. You know, I think that there are some kind of, you know, little voices at the back of your head that are kind of screaming the whole time, like, well, Jackie's just like trying to get to Vegas, like she's a hitchhiker, you know, so she needs a gym membership to stay in shape, and she's just trying to get a job, and she'll do whatever she needs. So there are those kinds of little voices in the back of your head, but I do genuinely believe that they love each other.
Yeah.
And even if they are kind of these warped interpretations of love to a certain extent.
Yeah. It always felt genuine to me after that initial scene. Like, I bought that they were like into each other and cared about each other for the most part. But yeah, it does, like, there are elements of like toxicity to it a little bit, which you have notes on later on. But
yes, yeah, there's definitely some toxicity in it and some strange behaviors. You know, Jackie, our hitchhiker from out of town, she is prone to bouts of violence. That's established pretty early on in the movie, where this guy's trying to pick her up and she just punches him in the nose. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's really, I mean, he deserved it. So it was an appropriate reaction. But then she continues to lean on violence as kind of this crutch or this mechanism. But she also uses it to show her love in a way for Louise, or at least her obsession for Louise.
Okay.
You know, because she kills JJ because she sees how much pain it's causing Lou, how much pain he caused Beth, and she knows it's just going to happen again. It's just going to happen again. So she thinks the way to end it is just let's kill JJ, which obviously it's not the correct solution, but he's also a piece of shit, so no one really misses him.
Yeah, well, and also that scene is the first time that we kind of see the maybe supernatural or maybe just experimental filmmaking at play, because she gets a little bit bigger than her normal size in that scene when she's killing him, and that gets taken to a whole new level later on. But it does seem like I think it's kind of tying in with her taking the steroids too, because we get those shots of like her body morphing and changing, kind of like she's hulking out almost. Before she does anything violent. Like, I think it's always preceded by that happening. So,
yeah,
but
I agree. Those are some interesting shots, and I got some thoughts on them.
Okay,
but we'll get into that later. But yeah, like Jackie, she kind of, in a way, she kind of morphs into JJ over time, because she's not entirely, obviously. I was just trying to draw a small parallel there, because he's abusive to Beth, and then later on in the film, Jackie and Lou, they get into this fight, and then Jackie just headbutts Lou to get her to shut up and get out of the way and leave. And it's like, Jesus, this is kind of weird how that happened, but I thought that was an interesting parallel. And then Lou also, she shows love for her partner by kind of providing for her in some regards. You know, she gives her the gym, she gives her steroids, she does some other things, she cooks her breakfast, she does all these kind of nice gestures, but then she's also kind of controlling in a way too. She tells her to stay put, or to listen to her, to follow her instructions, and it's like, you got to do this because you love me. And I feel like that's kind of inherited from her father to a certain degree. But maybe I'm reading into that a little bit too much. But you know, I think that they did have these interesting ways of expressing their love to each other, or at least like letting that love come to the surface.
Totally,
in a way.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair like comparison to draw between Lou and her father. It's also like she's trying to clean up this mess and does kind of need Jackie to like not fuck more shit up, but also that can be a trait inherited from her father too, because he is a criminal who cleans a lot of crimes up and all that stuff. So maybe just that whole thing, it's like, this is my expertise, this is my family business, I'll go fix this, and you just staple it.
Right. Yeah. And well, as the film goes on, you know, we get that more knowledge on her background too, a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, we don't get everything, just little glimpses into the past too. I also think that as characters, Lou and Jackie, they experience a lot of change together too, and I don't necessarily think that it was always positive change. Lou, for instance, though, I think that when we first meet her, she's more of a depressed, kind of introverted, reclusive individual. I feel like you can feel that she's shouldering a lot of guilt and weight. You don't know about what at the start, but you can kind of feel it kind of suppressing her. And as the film goes on, you learn it's about these executed victims from her family business. And I think Jackie helps bring her out of that depression.
Yeah.
To eventually stand up for herself to her father and give her the power to say, "Hey, fuck you! I'm telling the feds everything," kind of deal.
Yeah. I think part of her reclusiveness too is just like she is one of seemingly two lesbians in this small town, and the only other one is like super annoying to her, and she doesn't really want to interact with that person. So I think that's part of it as
That's
well.
fair.
Just like being, a minority in probably a pretty backwards town. It's not helpful.
Totally understandable. Jackie, on the other hand, she's this hitchhiker who comes from out of town. We don't know a lot about her background. We get little glimpses too, but we get the impression she'll do anything for a job. She's going to Vegas for her bodybuilding competition. She has a goal in mind. She wants to compete there and she wants to win. But then because of this relationship with Louise, she does develop a drug addiction for steroids. It is a very prevalent thing, and you get to see how it warps her perspective. And I think this, unfortunately, puts her into a spiral of violence. So I don't think that her character had as much positive growth as Lou, especially since we get that phone call later in the film. It's like she goes to the payphone after shooting that woman. But then her second call is to I think her original home.
Yeah.
And then you just hear on the other end, they're like, "Don't call here, you're a monster." And to me, that implies that she abandoned her original home because of violent behaviors or something like that. So yeah, I feel like just violence has always been kind of a part of her life.
Right.
In a way,
Yeah, that was kind
unfortunate.
of the impression I got too, unless it was like her family being homophobic or something. But based on what we've seen in the film, I think it is more that like she is prone to doing violent things, and maybe she is on the road and is a hitchhiker because of a violent act she did to her family at some point.
Yeah, totally. But I like both of them.
Yeah.
They're great characters. They do have I think great dynamic and great chemistry on screen too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were great.
They play off of each other really well.
And the love is in the title of the movie, so I think it's obviously a big theme in this film, and I think it does overlap with obsession to a certain degree. You do kind of grow obsessed with another person when you get into a relationship, and it could be one-sided, it can be both-sided. You can just kind of obsess over each other in general, but there's a lot of different ways that we express love, and that we grow love, and that we manipulate it, and that we live with it, and it destroys a lot of stuff too. And I think this movie had some really powerful depictions of how love is expressed sometimes. Jackie kills JJ, at least partially, probably not entirely, but partially because of her love for Louise. She saw the pain she was going through and wanted to try and fix that.
Yeah.
But then we got some great examples of how it grows too. Lou has, just like I was saying just a few minutes ago, she changes drastically by the end of the film from what we saw at the start, and that is because of her relationship with Jackie. And there's a lot of other stuff that happens too, but it is a lot of that growth of just someone being there to support you and grow. But then you also see how it manipulates sometimes, like Lou Sr. I think he does love his family to a certain degree, but he does manipulate his daughter and the rest of the family to go along with the crimes, because if they don't, they're all fucked, and he's kind of providing for a lot of their ways of life.
Exactly, yeah. It's like he owns the gym that Lou works at, and she probably like pays him rent too or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't need a lot of explanation.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, it is clear that he's kind of the head honcho of this town, and everyone's got to kind of fall in line with him.
Oh, exactly.
But then we also get, some good examples of how people will live with love, even if they don't, even if it's not the best form of love for them, or like they'll they won't recognize the red flags
Yeah.
that kind of live within the love, like Beth and JJ.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that Beth genuinely did love JJ, but she wanted to try and make that relationship work, even if he was physically abusive. She did see something. She saw something in him originally, and I think that she still kind of held on to
Mm-hmm.
that image, but she just didn't know how to get out of that relationship or how to improve it.
Right. Well, and that's something that I think a lot of victims of abuse have and go through, right? Where it's like they don't, like they recognize the abuse, but also they feel trapped or feel like some sort of Stockholm syndrome or love for that person anyway, and don't want them gone. Yeah, but and like every good way of dealing with this guy was being taken off the table by Lou Senior too. So it's like, well, we don't want him arrested because she wouldn't want him arrested. We don't want to kill him either because she wouldn't want him dead. And it's like, okay, so you're just gonna let him kill your daughter eventually? Like, put the fucker in jail, man. Come on.
Yeah,
Like,
so weird.
mm-hmm.
And then love can destroy, too. You know, the death of JJ. You know, you can make that argument that it was done out of love by Jackie, but it destroys Beth's life.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, because you know there are very practical consequences to these violent actions, and they need to be cleaned up and grappled with by other people. Like, you know, Jackie may not really think about JJ or Beth for the rest of her life, but Beth, she doesn't have a husband anymore. Her father's gonna be arrested. Like her sister's like gone out of town.
Yeah.
Like, and she's still got a bunch of kids to take care of, and she's like working at the Rite Aid or whatever it was she was working at. So she's like a minimum wage job, I'm sure. So it's like her life's kind of fucked in a lot of ways by the actions of our protagonist.
Yeah, well, and Jackie, like, I don't know, like, it's good that JJ gets killed, I guess, but it's like it wasn't necessarily Jackie's place to do that. Like, she's kind of an outsider to this whole situation and makes a pretty big fucking decision that throws this entire, like, the world of this entire town into complete chaos where everything falls apart. But yeah, it was interesting to see, but just a random thing that I think is interesting. I loved how Ed Harris's character, Lou Senior, that he's not homophobic. Like, he's a huge piece of shit, and he's the villain of the film. Has a lot of character flaws, but that just happens to not be one of them. I just thought that was neat, you know. And he also had no problem with like the main two girls like being a couple. He just kind of was like, huh, interesting. Like, he's just like he doesn't really give that much of a shit about what they're doing. He just wants to run his crime empire and like basically be left alone.
Yeah, collect his bugs.
Yeah,
stay in his mansion.
And he looks so ridiculous too. That hair, that fucking wig is so funny.
It's not very good on him.
No, but like he's supposed to look like a fucking weirdo, and I think he does. And I love when he in the hospital scene when he puts in the ponytail.
Yeah, it's like, oh, so you're on your way to the art show or the co-op? Where are you going?
He looks ridiculous. He's a very unique looking villain. I think is great.
Yeah, no, he's solid though. I think he's a good antagonist in this film because he's not really like front and center the whole time. He's not like always there. You just know that he's in the periphery. He's controlling things. He's kind of like a puppeteer in a way. Like he sends the cop after his daughter to take care of her.
Kill her.
Like he just has other people do his dirty work. Yeah. He just has other people do his dirty work. He's just there in the background. It's like that's all you need to do in this kind of film.
Well, and I love the contrast between his house and every other location in the film. It really kind of plays into that and shows you the amount of power he has, right? Because everywhere we've been up until this point, it's like this dingy, rundown location. Everything's a bit dirty, and then we go to his mansion, and it's like he's the king of this little fief, right? Like he pays off the cops. He's in charge of all the businesses. He runs everything, and everything kind of goes through him. And yeah, the fact that he can just like order a police officer to go murder his daughter is like, wow, this guy has quite a lot of power in this typical environment.
Significant, yeah.
Also, just a shout out to like the sequence of them disposing of JJ's body had such great tension, and the script escalated that tension perfectly. Like everything's already very tense, and then Daisy shows up at the red light and starts just being a little too observant. It's like, wait, why are you in JJ's car? Why is that lady in your car? What's going on here? It's like, shut up. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that's a great sequence. It's that pestering voice that's just there, and just like, you're the last person I want to talk to right now.
I know.
Like, I'm trying to think of like another example in my mind because I know that I've seen this before, but it's a really good plot device. Yeah, like you were saying, to build tension.
And also the location that they dispose of JJ and how it's been used in the past were kind of cool. And it reminded me, both it and the cleaning up of the guts in the house kind of reminded me of the recent True Detective that we watched, where and how the remoteness of these environments like make for a cool and creepy location for a crime story to take place in, because it's like, oh, these people just have places where they can dump bodies and not get caught, and except for like, and I also liked how Lou is like, okay, I'm gonna kill two birds with one stone here. This body will, like, people are gonna find out this guy's dead pretty soon, and I want to take down my dad's business, so I am just going to draw attention to the location where all of his other skeletons are hidden, and hope that everything gets pinned on him.
Yeah, that was interesting sequence. I think that's one area where I wish we had a little bit more build up of just understanding a little bit more of their dynamics with her dad, but I thought it worked very well still.
Well, and that location is the first shot of the film too. Like we come out of the canyon at the beginning, which was kind of neat.
I forgot about that. That's a really good point.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of people who get caught in the crossfire in this movie. So let's talk about them a little bit, starting with Beth.
Yeah. Like I was already kind of saying, she's I think one of the ultimate victims here, besides the people that died, which we'll talk about in just a second. Yep. But she, first of all, was being abused physically by her husband, so that's awful, and wouldn't wish that on anybody. And then by the end of the film, she's lost her husband, her father, her sister. Like, they're all out of her life now. Yep. She's got no support left in her life. And now she's got to raise some kids on a single income. Yep. Like, that's crazy. That's an insane hill to climb up. And then you have, like, definitely the stigma surrounding your father's arrest. That's going to, like, hang over your world for the rest of your life. Right. Like, that's just going to be terrible to deal with. And, it was ultimately just because she was in a relationship where she felt some love at some point, and she felt loved sometimes, but she didn't know how to escape the abuse, and she may not have even really wanted to leave the relationship. But yeah, she really got the short end of the stick at the end of this movie, so definitely feel for her. Yeah, she gets thoroughly screwed. Like, she's probably better off being outside of the abusive relationship, but also that choice was not given to her either. Like, she's in a coma basically, and then wakes up finding out that her sister and her new girlfriend, like, just completely destroyed her husband's head. Right. Yeah, that would be a terrible thing to wake up to. Yeah, and I do kind of feel bad for Daisy too. Even though she definitely sucks and is creepy and an asshole, she doesn't deserve to be killed. Like, she didn't deserve what happened to her. And it's even though, like, she's really weird and creepy at the beginning, but you feel kind of bad for her, and then you start to feel less bad for her when she's kind of trying to blackmail Lou into, starting a relationship with her. That's really disgusting. But yeah, she didn't necessarily deserve to die, and it's also very darkly comedic how just casually Lou kills her at the very end after discovering she somehow survived that initial shooting. And I guess at that point, what are you gonna do? But yeah, gotta end it sometime. Yeah, might as well make it quick if I can. Well, I guess it's like just the way it's like, how did she survive? How was she shot initially?
Was there any chance of her making a recovery at all, or was this like going to be a prolonged thing? But it's very dark. But it is comedic as well because Lou is so casual about it. And it's just in the background while Jackie's sleeping in the car. She lights up a cigarette.
I liked that final scene. That
I
was
did too.
It felt very reflective of their relationship, where it's just like, oh, I love her, but I gotta do the dirty work.
Yep.
Clean up for her. But yeah, Daisy, I didn't mind her character. I thought she was a good one. I think she was just playing devil's advocate for a second. You know, she's just trying to make the best of a bad situation.
Yeah.
Really. That's kind of what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think for her.
She was like, I think she's just lonely, but then she does start being like genuinely manipulative, and you know, manipulating someone into having sex with you is not chill. So
yes. But, yeah. Providing for you and all that stuff. Yeah. It's not the best. But yeah, I think one of the other things that this movie does well was the depiction of drug addiction, specifically with steroids.
Yep.
Here, you know, this was 1989, so you're kind of exiting that like kind of big, you know, macho man, muscly man era of the '80s, when it was just kind of all the rage, bodybuilding and stuff like that. And you know, I don't think at the time, my memory's not great on the 80s, and because I wasn't alive, so I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think that the full effects of steroids were known at the time on the body. I don't know if you know about that.
I don't know.
But, yeah, we don't need to draw into historical stuff here, but I thought it was a very interesting depiction of drug addiction and the effects of steroids, especially with kind of those experimental scenes. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, well, the depiction of the drugs itself just kind of bummed me out. It made me sad because like at the start of the movie, Jackie is like, oh, all natural. Like I just did all this work myself. And then Lou immediately is like, here's some steroids. You can do this. And then she just like deteriorates as a result of that. And it was kind of sad to see, and it fucks her up at the show. Or at least it's part of why the show goes so poorly for her, I think. But yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about the like her getting big. It's interesting, but I don't know if it was just like for our sake, or if there was supposed to be some level of like in the world of the film this is happening too. I was a little confused about what I was supposed to be understanding on screen in those moments, but fuck it, whatever. It was neat as well.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind it. I kept going back and forth in my head because I'm like, while I was watching it, I was going back and forth because that's not how steroids work in real time. It takes a long time for you to see effects. Like, it's not going to just all of a sudden, you got a huge muscle in your left arm.
Right.
But this is cinema. This is perspective too. Like, this is Jackie's perspective.
Yeah.
That's really how I kind of understood it. That she's feeling this way.
Right.
And you can, when she gets to Vegas, you know, you really do see how it just gives her tunnel.
Yeah, she's hallucinating.
She can't think of anything else.
She hallucinates Lou being behind the curtain, even though she's not in the city. Yeah, I think like the scene where she's killing JJ and she's just like a bit bigger, I think that worked better for me than the very end when she's like 1,000 feet tall and just like holding Lou Senior's arms out. But you know, it's fine. It was interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think a part of it, I think there's a few things at play there. I think one is a kind of an empowerment to a certain degree. You know, I don't think there's lots of women who have watched films about women taking steroids, you know, and beating men up about that. But I could be wrong. But I think it is partially about that, the empowerment feeling of like, okay, I can fucking do this. And I think it is kind of for the audience too, of like, we're behind her now. She's something's going to happen here. But I think it is also, I like read an article online that really spoke to me about that. I think it was Roger Eder, that website. I can't remember.
RogerEbert.com?
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I'm terrible with names sometimes. But I think that article did a pretty good job of summarizing that, of the ending of them kind of being the same size, running away into kind of the sunset, as kind of your typical running away into the sunset love feeling that you want at the end of romance feelings, because it's like, we're back together and we got away and everything's great and, you know, we're on good terms again finally. So I think it is kind of a we're happy together feeling.
Okay.
But I think ultimately it is her being a lot bigger is a bit of a warped perspective on drug addiction, and what it can have on one's mental health.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think there's a few different ways you can read into it there.
Yeah. But overall, I'd say very interesting movie, worth watching. It was a good, dark, entertaining film. So I liked it. Any other final thoughts you have on Love Lies Bleeding?
I'd agree with you there. It's a fantastic little thriller, very quick, compact, powerful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say I'd recommend it. It's fun.
Yeah, I would recommend it as well. But with that, let's transition into some other stuff we have been watching, reading, playing, etc. Niles, what have you been up to since our last episode?
So after our last episode where we talked about Dune Part 2, if you listened to it, you may have recalled that I hadn't watched Part 1 or rewatched it before watching Part 2. So the other day I was a little bored, so I said, hey, I want to rewatch that because I got Dune on the mind, and I'm so glad I did. So I watched Part 1, and man, I really do wish that I watched it before I watched Part 2, because I think that recontextualized a lot of things and some of my complaints that I had with it, but it holds up on the second rewatch.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say that.
Oh,
I got fire trucks going by my apartment.
oh my God.
right now.
Yeah.
Don't know if you could pick that up, but yeah, really like Dune Part 1. It's awesome. I would say go back and rewatch it if you can. I also have been continuing on with Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown. We just watched the Mexico episode last night.
Cool.
Which it's just so cool. He went, like, all the places he visits, like, add that to the list. Add that to the list. We're going to go to Thailand one day. We're going to go here one day. This looks awesome.
Yeah.
It's such a fun show. I also started watching Shogun.
Nice.
Upon your recommendation, Dylan. It's cool. It's a little challenging, just because I have to keep reading the subtitles. It kind of switches back and forth with the English speakers, so that kind of throws me for a loop sometimes. But it's a learning curve.
Yeah.
So, but it's really cool.
You'll get into the
It's
rhythm
really,
of that
really neat.
after a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
I'm always like that with subtitles, where it's like it takes me a little bit to remember to like read, but it's not as like. The subtitles are like paced in a way where it's easy to keep up, I think. Like I had a hard time keeping up with subtitles when I watched Shin Godzilla a few weeks ago. Just because the editing of that movie, if you ever watch it, it's so quick that I was like, oh shit, I missed some dialogue. They moved on too fast.
Yeah, no, I get that. There was definitely because I've only seen the first episode where I had to like rewind it 10 seconds because I'm like, I missed that.
Yeah.
You miss, if you're not reading, you miss something. And then last on my list is Invincible, Return Part 2 of Season 2. And I'm so happy with how it's going.
Yeah.
It's so great. And I know that you also watched Invincible as well, so we can talk about that now.
Yeah. It's I'm glad it's back finally. I wish they hadn't split this season up into two chunks like this, because it really, I didn't realize the episode was out until like 3 days after it had come out. But it's really cool. Great episode, very violent, as the show is known for. Was this the thing? Like in the first part of season 2, you were like, "Oh, I know what's coming." Was this what you were talking about? It was this? Okay.
Yep. This is episode 5.
Yeah.
Was exactly what I was expecting to happen.
Yeah.
They were very truthful to the comics. You and I were kind of talking about it before we started recording, but yeah, it's some heroes die in episode 5, and it is just about what happens in the comics, and I'm very happy that they're being so truthful to the source material and trying to follow through all that.
Well, I probably will want to rewatch the first half of season 2, because I'm guessing we'll do an episode on this season when it's done in a few weeks' time. So I'll need to refresh my memory on it. But like, this show's great, and apparently they're already doing work on season 3. So hopefully it's not as long of a wait as it was for season 2. But other stuff I've been doing, it's just continuing on. Cryptonomicon, still reading that. Helldivers 2, still playing a lot of that. And Shogun. I am up to date on Shogun. So I'm really, really enjoying that. And new episode comes out tonight, but at like 10 o'clock at night. So we'll see if I stay up and watch it, or if I wait till tomorrow and start it at like 7 p.m. instead.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's kind of a commitment.
Yeah, it's like
that late at night.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm still awake at that point in time, but I want to be like really attentive and alert for, especially because it's subtitled. Like I don't want to doze off for a minute and miss like a major plot. Like the last episode that I watched, last week's episode, like shit pops off at that point, and you're like, "Oh my god, okay, here we go."
Sick, awesome.
So, I'm excited to see where the story goes from here, and eventually, I'll probably want to go back and read the book. So it's originally a book. There was a movie in 1980, and now this is another adaptation of the book. And people, from what I could tell, people seem pretty happy with it as an adaptation so far. So that's really
good,
really nice to see. But yeah, I think that's all I got for this week. A little bit of a shorter one this time, but that'll happen every once in a while.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know what we're doing next, but we'll figure out something for 2 weeks from now. But thank you all so much for watching and listening. If you liked it, please give us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Share it with your friends and your family. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. And check out our other channel, Play Pause Rewind Videos, for spoiler-free reviews, YouTube shorts, and all that stuff. But until our next episode, Niles, where can people find you online?
People can follow me on Instagram at NilesGotNoStyles. What about you, Dylan? Where can people follow you?
On Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at DDayMovies, on YouTube at DDayMovies. And you can find, and on Twitch at DDay_movies. You can also find both of us here at Play Pause Rewind, as well as Play Pause Rewind videos on YouTube and your podcast platform of choice, as well as on TikTok at Play Pause Rewind _podcast. And I think that's all the places, right? I think that's it.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're going to be working on some rewind videos for the second channel coming up pretty soon, especially our Star Wars prequel rewind for Star Wars Day. So we need to get prequel watching soon.
Yeah, we got to get cracking on that.
Yeah, but look forward to all of that, and we will see you guys back here in 2 weeks for another episode. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye.